It's so windy outside. This is kind of crazy. And I have a snoring dog, so if there's excessive noise, that's what's happening right now. Welcome to my little nook, my little book nook in my room. Here with me today is my new bookshelf that I got for Christmas. It's so exciting. I'll show you a little bit. It's so cool. I'm obsessed. And there's a whole nother shelf above it with all my contemporary romances and everything. I have a shelf on the bottom that'll fit more books. It's like practically empty. I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite Christmas presents. It was crazy to put it up. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I thought it would be fun for today to discuss if you want to start reading, what you should begin with. I have physical books, and I also want to mention some that I've read on my Kindle just to give some variety. I'm gonna separate it into genres. So I'm gonna do contemporary romance, fantasy, and dark romance. Now I'm not going to give much dark romance recommendations for beginners because that's kind of a hard genre to get into. You kind of have to dabble in different storylines to figure out what you want to read in the dark romance category, but I'll give you some options that I feel are a little bit less intense than others, obviously. But I'm going to jump right into it. I think the most that I have is contemporary romance, so I'm going to begin with that. The first author highlight that I want to bring up is Abby Jimenez. I first read Yours Truly by her quite a bit ago now, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. The female main character got off on the wrong foot with me, and I think because of that I didn't really like her, but once they dove more into her storyline, I didn't mind her as much. Like once I hit the halfway point, I was like, okay, I actually really enjoy this book. But it follows two doctors in the medical field. The FMC has her own life issues dealing with certain things, and then MMC comes into this hospital. He's new. He has social anxiety, like severe social anxiety, which I completely understand. Like I felt like I was him because of just the things that he had mentioned that he has to do in order to deal with his social anxiety. He gets off on the wrong foot with the FMC and he feels bad about it, so he writes her a letter apologizing, and then they kind of go back and forth, develop a friendship through these letters that they send, and it's really cute. Also, it's fake dating. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute. But my favorite that I've read from her is Just for the Summer. If you've watched any of my videos, you should have known that this book is coming up. I will never ever stop recommending this book. It deals with so much of a human experience. It's that fictional writing that's like, is it fictional though? Like, I feel like I'm this person. Emma and Justin posts on this Reddit forum basically saying, everyone that I date, when we break up, they go on to find their true love. Emma sees this and is like, oh my gosh, same. They decide to make a deal to just date for the summer. They'll have that whole dating experience. Then when they break up, they'll part ways and find the loves of their life. Just the quotes that Justin says in this book is just beautiful. Like I underlined so much of it. It's heartfelt, it's heart-wrenching. Everything that you would want in a book, I feel, is this book. I did a challenge with my best friend hoping to read for 24 hours straight. That did not happen, but I read this book during that time and I was just in awe of it. The next author highlight that I want to talk about is Emily Henry. She is also the queen of writing stories that feel way too authentic for it to be fictional. My favorite story of hers is Beach Read, but Funny Story is up there too. I just really loved the storylines of her books. They deal with grieving in every single book. There's also redemption, there's character growth, there's so much in her storylines that resonate so much with people, and I think that's why she's just a heartfelt, realistic author. And so I enjoy all of her books. I'm excited for the book that she's going to release this year. She's an auto-buy author for me. I guess I can do a quick rundown of each book. Beach Read follows these two rivals. They have gone to school together. It's Gus and January. Gus is a horror nonfiction, different genre of January. January writes love stories, contemporary romances. Both of these authors are going through a writer's block. January goes to this town. She has her own storyline, things that she needs to grieve, things that she needs to deal with. Unkept secrets are coming to the surface, and she is moving to this town temporarily. Well, her next door neighbor is her rival, Gus for this temporary time, and so they make a bet to switch genres and write books in each other's genres. I think just the writing and the quotes are so beautiful. And then Book Lovers is a really great book too. It follows these two people who are in this writing community. One's an editor, one's a agent. They start off on the wrong foot. Very unprofessional, very like banter back and forth, but I love it. I love good banter, even if it is unprofessional. Nora is a literary agent. One of her clients wrote a book about this small town. Nora's sister is obsessed with this book, loves this small town, so she decides to take Nora on a vacation to this small town when Nora and Charlie, who is the editor, right? He's an editor, correct? Yeah, brooding editor. Well, when they first meet, he has so much crap to say about this small town and how he hates it, all this stuff. Well, Nora runs into Charlie in this small town while she's on vacation with her sister, and he's actually from this small town. They kind of have to deal with each other being in this small town, get to know one another, still have banter. They are both very city people. Thought it was a fun read, a good time all around. And I enjoyed it. The next one is People We Meet on Vacation. This is probably my least favorite just because I'm not that much of like a friends to lovers girl. I think when friends to lovers does exist in a plot that I'm reading, sometimes I just feel like they should have just stayed friends. Like it felt a little rushed to me, but I did enjoy the storyline. Poppy and Alex are like besties. Poppy is a travel blogger, and so she goes to these different places and invites Alex with her to travel with her, and they go to all these different places. Well, they had a falling out. You don't know why, and so it's kind of like a second chance to rekindle their friendship. So Poppy invites Alex to a trip to Palm Springs, I believe. Everything that you could think of goes wrong. And so I did enjoy the storyline. There's flashbacks, there's the present tense, you're trying to figure out why they stopped talking because it seems like they're still good friends, what happened, and then you find out at the end and all this stuff. But I did enjoy it, but you can't really hate an Emily Henry book. For it to be my least favorite, it's still like really good to me. Happy Place. This was such a good book, but I despise the miscommunication trope. That is just really like, this would have been 5 stars for me. I just cannot do a miscommunication trope, but I still enjoyed it. This book takes place in Maine or Rhode Island, somewhere beachy. Maine. Yeah, okay. I was right. This takes place in Maine, and you have the two main characters, Harriet and Wynne. You find out that they knew each other in college, these 3 girl best friends. They were roommates in college. Every summer go to one of the girls' family beach houses in Maine, and it's like their happy place, all of them together. You have the main characters and then their relationships. They all meet at this house. It's their last time together at this house because they're going to sell the house. Harriet goes to the beach house. Wynne goes to the beach house. They're supposed to be engaged, but you find out that they have broken off their engagement, but they haven't told their friends yet, and so they have to fake date while being with their friends because they don't want it to be bad news while they're hanging out for the last time at this beach house. You get flashbacks of them when they first started dating. You get the present, and you're also trying to figure out what the heck happened. They seem so in love, but now they're awkward, and it's, yeah, second chance romance, fake dating. It's still a really cute storyline. I don't really care much about the romance, even though it's still cute. I love this book because of the friendships in this. I think it's such a great found family storyline. All of these books deal with romance, but I think this one stands out for sure with girl friendships. Like, this is a true girl friendships book. You can have your best, closest friends in college, but once you graduate, once you find careers, once you move, you're not as close anymore. It deals with that, and I really do enjoy this book. The next 2 are from Ashley Poston. She's another author that I really enjoy. First one that I read from her is The Dead Romantics. I read this during, I think, fall of last year. I really enjoyed this. It hit so close to home with the storyline, just kind of like losing someone that you care about. I enjoyed it thoroughly, front to back, because it hit so close to home for me. Just dealing with grief, trying to move on past it, family quarrels when grief occurs. I really enjoyed it. It follows Florence. She is a ghostwriter for a popular romance author. Florence meets her new editor, and he is this handsome, tall man, like as a fictional man is in a book. They discuss things, all that jazz. Well, she gets a call that one of her family members has passed away, so she has to go back home. And as she's home, she gets a knock on the door, and it's her new editor, and she's like, "What are you doing here? I'm not working at the moment." And you find out that he actually died. She can see dead people. It's a gift that she got from her father. She's trying to deal with her own grief while also trying to help him move on, move into the light, and not linger anymore. Also developing a romance with him. I thought it was really cute. Little less on the romance side, and like I said, more on the grieving, family dealing, her storyline I enjoyed. When I finished this book, I literally was crying, and I put it under my pillow, and I slept that night. I slept really good, and I just didn't want to let go of this book. The next one that I read from her was The 7-Year Slip. Everyone was talking about this book on TikTok, and so I wanted to give it a read. I think with this book, it is beautifully written, but the romance aspect of this book I didn't really enjoy, but I thought it was still heartfelt. It just felt a little too rushed for me. It's about this girl, she loses her aunt, and her aunt always said that her apartment was magical. There was always magic in the air. Clementine inherits her aunt's apartment, and so while she's living at this apartment, someone shows up at her apartment and was like, "What are you doing here? I didn't know anyone was gonna be here." And it's a guy, 5 years, 7 years, hence 7-year slip, Hannah. This guy who shows up in her apartment is 7 years from the past, and so that's what she means. That's what the aunt meant by magical. Clementine has to, again, deal with grief and also kind of develop a romantic friendship with this guy, and if she leaves her apartment, she doesn't know if the guy will be there or not when she gets back, because she doesn't really know the timeline, the magic. There's no rules really when it comes to this magic system, so I enjoyed this book. I definitely like the Dead romantics better, but again, the quotes, I mean, top tier. The next author highlight for contemporary romance is my favorite cowboy romance writer, and that is Elsie Silver. This is the Chestnut Spring series. I talk about the Chestnut Spring series all the time. It's so good. It's interconnected. Each book deals with a MMC and their love interest. So in the first book, it follows Rhett. He's a professional bull rider. And then the second book is Rhett's brother, Cade. He is the eldest, and he's a single father running the ranch. He needs a nanny. And then the third book is the best friend to the brothers, and he's a professional hockey player. He kind of has his own storyline. It's friends to lovers, the brother's cousin. And then the fourth book is Rhett's prodigy, who is another bull rider. It's a accidental pregnancy book, which is done very nicely. Then the fifth book is the last brother, Bo. He's a army man, a military man on the hush-hush, like covert ops guy, and something bad happens to him, and so he's sent home. He's having to deal with the PTSD of being away and also trying to live his life being at home because he hasn't really had a home. He's been a soldier for a very long time. There's a lot that he needs to deal with in that storyline. I really enjoyed this whole series. I'm currently reading the Rose Hill series. I'm gonna start the second book in that series, and then I also have the Gold Ranch series. I feel like I'm saying series a lot. I haven't read that. That's basically the first series that Elsie Silver wrote, in one of those books is the sister to the Eatons, which is the three brothers in the storyline for the Chestnut Springs series. I enjoyed it. I definitely, obviously, I'm reading more of her books. I love Elsie Silver. She's another auto-buy author for me. If you want to get kind of into the cowboy romance era, if you kind of want to start reading a series, I know all the books that I've mentioned so far aren't really series, they're standalones, and so if you want to dip your toes into something that has to do with cowboys, that has to do with hot cowboys, the Chestnut Springs series is the place to start. The next category will be fantasy, and I have 3 fantasy books that I want to talk about. They're all part of a series, but it's there I go again, talking about series. Let's tally how many times I've said series in this video. The first one that I want to talk about is The Serpents in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I want to read, I'm blanking on the title, but it's like Pirates of the Underworld or Daughters of the something of that. There's another series from her that I really want to read, but this one is really good. This follows a human and she lives in vampire territory. There's these trials that take place every century or so, I believe. She is the only human in these trials with other vampires, and whoever wins these trials is granted a wish from the goddess of vampires. She develops a friendship, a unlikely alliance with another vampire. I really enjoyed it, but I need to get to the second book. The next one is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. It's a very easy read. It's less of a fantasy world building book and more of a romance book. I need to read Powerful and Reckless. I haven't read that yet. I'm waiting for Fearless to come out and then I'll read those two. Powerful is a novella, so it's very short, but I did enjoy this book. Very easy to read. I mean, literally this is probably the only book where almost every single page, I kid you not, is underlined or tabbed in some way. Like, there's always something that's underlined on every single page. The quotes are amazing. The romance seems a little forced. Now that I've dipped my toes in more of fantasy books, I can see how my opinion has changed a little bit of it, but I feel like if I reread it, I would still probably give it 5 stars. So, and then the last one in the fantasy category is The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. I read that on my Kindle, and it's very, very easy to get through. It's not world-changing literature, I'm going to tell you that right now. My dog has to use the bathroom. Hold on. Continuing on with The Veiled Kingdom. So there's only 2 books out right now. I believe the 3rd one will be coming out this year, roughly. They are pretty short, very easy to read. The Veiled Kingdom, it follows this girl. She is kind of this lost princess. She has run away from her home. Well, is it a home? It's like a castle. And her father is crazy for Cocoa Puffs. He's cuckoo. She has run away from this castle and somehow ends up in the arms of the rebellion. She is taken into this hidden rebellion hideaway. And if you don't join the rebellion, then you die. No one knows who she is. And in this kingdom, you can have powers. If you don't really have powers, there's really no use for you. However, she doesn't have powers. They're trying to teach her archery and all this stuff, you know, as a fantasy does. And who teaches her archery and training and fighting in leathers? A hot, tall, brooding man. It's just, you know, sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of the storyline. I did enjoy it, and it's, again, very easy to read. Not so much world building, but again, like heavily romance driven. And there's supposed to be enemies. They're supposed to have like banter. The mouth on this guy is just pure filth. So if you do enjoy stuff like that, then I do recommend this series. But again, super easy to understand. I am excited for the 3rd one to come out. I don't know if it's the last one or if it's still continuing on, but I was able to get the 2nd book as an arc on my Kindle, and it was really good. I like the 1st one better. 2nd book is building up for the 3rd book, so you feel like nothing really happens. I am looking forward to the 3rd book and seeing what happens in this 3rd book that's coming out. Last category that I want to discuss is dark romance. Now, I'm not going to recommend anything crazy. I want to actually do beginner-friendly dark romance because, like I said, it is a difficult journey to figure out what you enjoy in the dark romance genre. There's 4 books that I want to recommend you, and within one of that books is a series. I will start off, you know what, I'm just going to tell you, my first ever dark romance experience, I read Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline. I felt like I could read anything. And then I got to last February and I read only dark romances for the whole month. I was a changed woman, I will say that. I did not understand or fully comprehend the extent of that all encompasses dark romance. I will not be recommending Haunting Adeline or Hunting Adeline for that matter. Actual beginner stuff. The first one I'm going to recommend was actually the first book that I read during that month of February for dark romances, and this was perfect. Great entry level. It's Hooked by Emily McIntyre. She has a like dark Disney retellings of certain Disney storylines. So Hooked obviously follows Peter Pan, and it's James and Wendy. So this is a great storyline. He is a villain, but also there's a worse villain in this book, and you're like, okay, well, they're both villains, but obviously that one's worse, so obviously I'm not gonna root for him. But that's kind of like the mental thought process that goes through my head whenever I'm reading dark romance. I'm like, this guy is totally morally gray, this love interest. Which, you know, it's bad when there's someone even worse than the main character in the book, and you're like, okay, definitely not that guy. So I guess we're gonna root for the main character, you know? Wendy is a young 20-something-year-old girl, and she goes out to a club one night. James sees her and is like, this is the daughter of my sworn enemy, and I'm going to manipulate her. I'm going to do everything in my power to take down my enemy, and I'm gonna do it through his daughter. I really want to read Scarred from her. I heard that's like the best one, and so I have that book. Have yet to read it. And then if you want to start with an H.D. Carlton book, I think the one to go with is Does It Hurt? This isn't my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. A lot of people enjoy this book, so that's why I'm including it. But for me personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of it because literally they just fight and have sex the whole book. If you're into that, sure. I wanted more of the storyline, like the actual thriller aspect of it. Basically, this girl is on the run from law enforcement and she steals people's identity. Well, she runs into this guy. She ends up stealing his identity after like a one-night stand. And so he finds out, wants to teach her a lesson, so he takes her on his boat and definitely teaches her a lesson. But they end up in a boat crash because of a storm, end up on a deserted island with a lighthouse, and they find out that it's not actually deserted and creepy things are happening. But also, like, again, they just fight and have sex the whole time. I really wanted more of the thriller aspect of it, but it wasn't terrible. I wanted more from it. The next one is one of my favorites that I've read, and I really don't want to consider it dark romance, even though it literally qualifies as a dark romance, but it's Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. She knows how to write a like golden retriever man in a dark romance. Like, they're all kind of the same archetype when it comes to dark romance. Not that it was like a breath of fresh air, but it was something really nice to listen to something different because I listened to the audiobook on Spotify, and I actually recommend listening to it on Spotify. I think the narrators do such an amazing job when it comes to narrating that book, and it's a duet narration. Lights Out follows Josh and Allie. Allie is this nurse and she works long, grueling, rough hours. I'm pretty sure she's an ER nurse, so she goes through a lot of traumatic experiences. And to decompress from work, she goes on TikTok and sees this masked man and like all of his thirst traps and just thinks he's like the hottest guy, all of this stuff. So she sends a text to this guy that she's hooking up with and was like, hey, we should do this. And he goes, no, we're not gonna do that. And kind of like shames her behind her back to his roommate. And you find out that his roommate is actually the guy who is posting these thirst videos that Allie enjoys. And so he ends up stalking Allie and doing all of these things, like not in a creepy way, not in like a Zayd Meadows way, okay? We're not creepy about it. Like, not that stalking is good in general, but he's not weird about it. I don't know how to advocate that he's not a bad guy. He ends up like stalking her. For instance, acts of service man. Love a good acts of service man. There's a winter storm outside. He knows that she's tired, so he ends up driving to the hospital after he's hacked into the security feed of the hospital just to know she's okay, you know, watch her in her daily world. Goes to the hospital, decides that he should drive her home. He doesn't want her driving out in the storm while she's tired. So like acts of service, you know? He just cares for her. But he's so funny too. The things that you find out about him and his backstory and kind of like who he is as a person. He's trying to find the line between creepy and honorable at the same time. It's a funny storyline and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's nothing like I've read before when it comes to dark romance, and I kind of want to read more of it. It kind of reminded me of like a Butcher and Blackbird, where it's dark romance for sure, like there are dark components, in the storyline, but the characters are what makes it funny, and there's laughable moments that are truly memorable. If you had to read or wanted to give it a read, lights out, I would recommend listening to it on either Audible or Spotify. Again, the narrators, I don't know their names, but they are phenomenal when it comes to narrating this book, and I'm excited for her second book to come out soon, hopefully, which I believe is a motorcycle guy, and you know what, we're not gonna talk about that. The last book slash series that I want to recommend is the Darkverse series. I've only read the first book in the Darkverse series, but it's definitely something that I want to continue on. So if you're not really into series, I definitely would recommend reading the first one, The Predator, in the series, and see, here I go again, saying series. Truly, I hear it's a phenomenal one, and I loved The Predator. It leaves off on a cliffhanger, so you need to read the second book to continue on with their storyline, and then the following books, there's different couples in each book. And then the last book actually just came out, I believe, last month. And so I need to get that one. But I really do want to finish it because it's a good, like, mafia, true enemies. They fight. There's a outside villain to where they have to work together, but they don't want to work together. And there's just built up tension, built up energy between them. And it's so good. I love Tristan Kane. I love him so much. And I love Marana. She's just so smart and like stands on business. Those are all my recommendations for beginner readers in these different genres that you want to try and tackle. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of chaotic. I don't know if I missed some things because of my camera dying or my dog having to jump off the bed and just things going down, wind blowing. I'm feeling like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, like my house is gonna blow away. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe for more videos to come. If you want to follow me on any other social media platforms, I will have them linked down below in the description, and I hope to be seeing you in the next video. Bye!